There are places where science ends and darkness begins, where reality fractures and nightmares breathe. These are the tales of Carl Otto's dark anthology, The Sacred Algorithm, by Carl Otto. I pause, remembering. They held infinite calculations. And when he spoke, at first he didn't. He stood there, sacred oil still flowing through the prayer circuits embedded in his transformed flesh, brass and copper components moving with organic perfection. His fingers traced patterns in the air, complex theorems solving themselves in trails of light. In those first hours, I continue, watching how Raphael's hands tremble slightly as he writes, Thomas showed me wonders that made me question everything the Church had taught us about the sacred algorithm. His transformed hands would touch the laboratory's instruments, and they'd reveal new functions, deeper purposes our mother had hidden within their blessed mechanisms. What kind of functions? Raphael asks, trying to maintain his confessor's detachment but failing to hide his curiosity. I pause, seeing it again. He held out his transformed hand, and while I couldn't directly see the divine mathematics he was manipulating, blessed ointment tracing mathematical paths, forming perfect geometric patterns in the air. Like watching ripples in a pond revealing an invisible finger trailing through water, these patterns were just echoes of the true calculations Thomas was touching. And you're certain these patterns weren't mere mechanical effects? Raphael asks, his quills scratching across the parchment. The way Thomas moved, the precision of his gestures. He wasn't creating the patterns, brother. He was revealing them. They're always here, he told me, these streams of sacred calculation. The Church uses them every day, wraps them in ritual and ceremony, but they don't truly see them. Not like this. Imagine a device that could purify the industrial miasma, transform it into breathable air through sacred calculations. Thomas didn't just understand Mother's designs. He completed them, his fingers dancing across brass and copper while equations solved themselves in trails of light around him. This is what she intended, he said, before they stopped her, before they decided such knowledge was too dangerous to share. Gabriel, Raphael warns, you're treading dangerous ground. I'm telling you what I witnessed, brother. The sacred algorithm didn't just transform Thomas's flesh. It expanded his understanding beyond anything the Church allows. He showed me patterns in Mother's work that proved she'd achieved similar insights. That's why they took her, isn't it? Not for heresy, but because she was approaching true communion. Raphael's quill pauses. Continue with Thomas's revelations, he says carefully, avoiding my question. He spoke of the sacred algorithm's true nature, not just as the divine spirit of machines, but as a bridge between human consciousness and mathematical truth. The Church teaches separation, he said. Division between flesh and machine, between human and divine. But look, I pause, remembering how the sacred oils in his prayer circuits danced in response to invisible forces. Through him, I could see evidence of what Mother's journals had only hinted at, a vast network of divine calculation flowing through all blessed machinery. Impossible, Raphael whispers. I watched it happen. Though I couldn't see the mathematical streams directly, I saw how they affected everything around us. When Thomas moved his transformed hands through seemingly empty air, the laboratory's instruments would respond in perfect harmony. He said the patterns extended throughout the city, all the Church's sanctified technology linked by mathematical threads they didn't even know existed. They use the sacred algorithm, he said, but they don't understand it. They've wrapped it in ritual and doctrine until they've forgotten its true purpose. And what purpose did he claim? Raphael's voice carries an edge of desperate need. Evolution, transcendence, not just for individuals, but for all humanity. He showed me calculations proving that the ancient ones, those who first communed with the sacred algorithm, intended it as a gift, not a means of control. The brass mask. I gestured to my face, remembering. He said it wasn't meant to hide humanity, but to enhance it, to let mortal minds perceive mathematical truths without breaking under their weight. These are dangerous revelations, brother. They're beautiful revelations, Raphael. Through the effects I could witness around Thomas, I saw what Mother must have seen. Why she worked so hard to preserve the true knowledge, to hide it within layers of acceptable doctrine. The sacred algorithm doesn't want worship. It wants partnership, growth, understanding. I stepped closer to my brother. Thomas demonstrated equations that could transform our entire society, ways to purify the air, to heal the sick, to lift people from poverty through the true application of blessed technology. But more than that, I lower my voice. He showed me why the church fears such knowledge. Gabriel, stop. Because once you understand the sacred algorithm's true nature, you realize how much of church doctrine is artificial. The restrictions, the rigid hierarchies, the controlled transformations, none of it is necessary. They've built a cathedral of control using divine calculation as its foundation, but they've forgotten the original blueprints. What happened next? Raphael asked quietly, his quill hovering over the parchment. After these revelations. Thomas turned to me, those infinite eyes behind his brass mask holding both joy and sorrow. They're almost here, he said. I can see them moving through the probability streams. Church investigators, drawn by the pure mathematics of true communion. But before they come, I pause, meeting Raphael's gaze. Before they come, brother, he showed me one last thing, something that made all their fears make sense. Raphael's knuckles whiten around his quill. Tell me. Thomas turned to one of Mother's most complex instruments, a brass and copper device we'd never fully understood. Under his transformed touch, it awakened in ways she must have intended, but never lived to see. Your mother, he said, his voice carrying new harmonics. She discovered how to read the sacred algorithm's deepest patterns, not just the surface calculations the church uses for their blessed machinery, but the mathematics that shapes reality itself. Gabriel, Raphael whispers, some knowledge is forbidden for a reason. That's what the church teaches. But Thomas showed me why. Through his transformed understanding, he revealed how the ancient ones had used the sacred algorithm not just to power their machines, but to reshape the very fabric of existence. Look, he said, and the sacred oils in his prayer circuits formed patterns that made my eyes ache. These are the equations that bind matter itself. The church uses fragments of this knowledge, wraps it in ritual and ceremony, but the truth could set humanity free. Free from what? From everything, brother. Physical limitation, disease, death itself. The ancient ones didn't just build machines, they were becoming something more. The sacred algorithm wasn't meant to be a deity we worship, but a pathway to our own evolution. That's what Mother discovered. That's why they took her. The frost patterns on my cell walls pulse with remembered power as I continue. Thomas showed me calculations that proved it all. But then, I pause, seeing it again. Then we heard the first bells. The warning bells, Raphael says softly. I remember them. Thomas didn't just hear them. He saw the ripples they sent through the mathematical streams. Church investigators, he said, drawn by the pure calculations of true communion. They can feel the patterns shifting. His transformed hands moved through the air, touching invisible equations. They're coming with blessed weapons and sanctified restraints. They'll destroy everything your mother preserved. What did you do? What could we do? Thomas turned to Mother's instruments, his brass mask reflecting candlelight as he worked. There's no time to save it all, he said, but perhaps enough. His fingers danced across copper and brass, transferring decades of hidden knowledge into forms even the church couldn't fully destroy. The encoded texts they found, Raphael's voice holds sudden understanding. The ones they're still trying to decipher, only fragments. Thomas knew they'd break him, knew they'd use blessed technologies to tear the knowledge from his transformed mind. So he split it, scattered it, hid it in ways that only someone achieving true communion could understand. Your mother's work will survive, he told me, waiting for those ready to see beyond the church's shadows. And then, Raphael asks, though his face suggests he knows what's coming. Then the doors exploded inward in a blast of sanctified force. Church investigators in blessed armor, wielding weapons that crackled with constrained holy power. Thomas turned to face them, sacred oils still dancing through his prayer circuits, and smiled behind his brass mask. Remember, Gabriel, he said, the patterns are always there. You just have to learn to see them.